Vivian has sent me a scene of hers and I'm going to try and relight it. This is as it stands. I don't intend to modify the composition. I'm just interested in the lighting situation. Looking at this, you can see that the main area of brightness is here in the sky. We have a little bit of something going on at the bottom of this waterfall that's probably driven by ambient effect, as is this edge effect here. This area looks a little bit bluish, and that's probably coming from a haze effect, but the haze can act like lighting. That's the reason I mention it, because otherwise we've just got direct lighting from the sun, and the sun's not particularly strong, but it is providing a very dark shadow region under the eaves here, which I wouldn't expect to see on what looks like quite an overcast day. So there's a bit of a contrast issue there, in that this is all rather flat, but we've got these very dark shadows but no bright sunlight to explain it, and the bright area in the sky here is really not providing illumination because it's only a sky effect. So those are some of the considerations I had when looking at this image. Now let's go to the source file and go about restructuring the lighting. I may try several different approaches, but first of all you'll see that it's not rendering particularly quickly, and the reason for that is in the render options we're set into premium effects. We've got none of the premium effects selected, so if we can do this in regular, and for the purposes of previewing it won't really make much difference. The 16 rays per pixel at premium effects will probably produce better anti-aliasing on the textured surfaces, but otherwise it won't really affect the lighting as it stands. Now the first thing to do is to take all the lighting out of the scene, so we can start from a blank canvas if you like, but it'll actually be a black canvas, or as near as I can get it. So I'll go into the Skylab and we'll make sure that the sun's disabled, and go to atmosphere. We can disable the haze there, the fog. I could do rendering scene, and we can make sure that the sun and moon isn't visible, so they won't appear in the sky. Anything else we could do? Well, I can set these colours to fully black. Let's check that is fully black. No, they're not. Though with the sun and moon not visible, then it won't show up anyway, so that's redundant, but I like to make sure everything. I might bring it back, so I'll make sure that we've got everything set down. Sky dome colour, that's important that that's set to 0 because that acts as a light from above. And well, ambient, well, I'll set that at this magenta colour so I can see what's being affected by the ambient. And if I hold the shift key down, is it click on or control key? I can remember alt key to disable that this clouds. So where have we got now? So a bit of ambient effect is providing a bit of glow at the bottom of the waterfall. A bit of ambient effect is appearing in this railing, though it's very little. I think if I can just select that there, you can see it in the material there. There's some ambient for that, but that won't interfere with what we're doing. And there's this volumetric material applied to these flattened spheres that are providing an edge effect for the water, and they are lighting the scene, but they're not responding in a very direct way to the ambient, because volume materials work differently. So I'm going to reduce the ambient out, but you can see it has an effect there, but we probably won't see much difference here. It's got a bit dimmer, but it's not tinted magenta in the same way that the 2D material is that's used on this terrain here. This is the ambient channel that's providing the waterfall effect. So back to the flattened spheres, because they're volume materials and they'll be impairing render time, I'm going to reduce the quality setting. That'll tend to increase the density of the effect, which makes it look a bit brighter, and so I'll reduce the diffuse effect as well to bring that down again, so that it's just a little bit of an effect there when it comes into it. A bit brighter on that. Let's see. Okay, and then I'll set the ambient to fully white to drive the waterfall effect there. So at the moment then we've got no lighting in this scene, and what I think I would like to do is we'll try out one of Horo's HDRI images, the sunless sky one's very good for this kind of thing. So I'll take this one, and the north point here is where the light's coming from. So I'll just set the quality down, set the specular down. We're not getting much effect out of here, so let's take that up a bit and see if we can get some effect going. Okay, we're just lighting the scene a bit now, and then I'm going to rotate it round to the left here, because what I want is the light to come in and across this terrain, so it's going to leave this building in shadow. I mean, alternatively, we could do it from this direction, but you can see that the main light, even though we've got no sunlight, the main light bright area in this sky, where this cloud's lit up, is still quite intense, even though it's not like direct sun HDRI intense, which is very intense. It's still enough. So this should give us some ambient for lighting this area. I'm going to make it a bit brighter. Let's try 450. So, and this should be bluish in colour because that's coming from that part of the sky, and then some light that'll be coming across the surface of this terrain, which I intend to light. So that's brightened things up a bit. It's quite a lot actually. Let's see what we've got here. We've got some light on the side of that building. As I say, it's blue. Maybe that's a bit too blue, but that's okay. I can always reduce the saturation here. Let's try 75. And so taking the blue out will stop these greens from getting too acidic. I'm going to move it around a little bit further. This area is a bit too bright in the sky, I think, so I'm going to reduce the intensity of that. A couple of notches down. There we go. So now we've got a very bright area here, which is corresponding to this bright portion in the sky. Some ambient in this area, and these rocks lit up. Well, this hillside. I don't know how well the waterfall is going to show up. It's a bit difficult to say at this resolution. Let's give it a quick overall test and see what the render times are suggesting. So that's going to take about 10 minutes. So I'll save that. So, and then consider a lighting alternative that's going to take a bit longer to render. I want to try a transience version. So what I'm going to do is I'll create a radial light source and modify the name to background. Make sure I've spelt it right. Edit it. Get rid of any output from the diffuse and specular. Transience optimized. Use gel procedural and reset it to default grey. Check out of there and enlarge it so it encompasses the entire scene. Go into the sky and fog, Skylab. I want to light from the inside, not cast shadows. Turn off transience optimization and include only background. You can't name a light source and have it appear in the list, but background is something that always appears in the list. So by naming the light source background, you can target it exclusively, well, inclusively, only by the HDRI. So now lighting the inside of that grey sphere, and then that's going to come back through the transience as ambient light. Obviously, to get this effect working, we'll need transience engaged, so we'll use premium effects. I will bring in soft shadows. I'll just turn that down to 4 rays per pixel for now. True ambience, scattering and boost light, I'll reduce that to 4 to make things a little bit more efficient. And while I'm at it, yes, I did set soft shadows, so I'll set that here so we can use those two premium effects together. That I've got the sun disabled at the moment. I'm just going to have a look at the ambient light contribution now. So this is true ambient lighting. Now if I introduce the sun, and I'm going to position the sun, you see this is where the light point is, where the sun was, where it was covered up by the cloud in Horus HDRI. So if I put the sun roughly where that is, like so, and then turn it back on, so sun and moon, turn the diffuse up to, let's try 450, get rid of the specular, and we can see in the preview it doesn't do transience, but it will show us where the sunlight is, so I can just tweak its position a bit. So I've got it coming across at an angle there. Let's try this out now. So do I want any more ambient light than that? I'm going to say yes, so push it up a bit. Now if I wanted to boost it, I could use apply to light source, but since I've still got some headroom here, I'm going to take this up to say 750. See how that turns out, because I want this area to be filled in, but I want the impression of things being, you know, a bright sunny day still. And so hopefully we'll be able to compare the two approaches. You'll notice it's not brightly coloured, so I'm going to bring the colour back in with the saturation to try and bring a bit more blue into this area. It's still not particularly blue, that, but we can modify the material of the light source that's actually just a receptive surface for the HDRI, and we could change this to have more blue in it, for example. So when the HDRI lighting that's coming from the inside hits the inside of this sphere and then comes back as true ambient light, you can see that's had quite a radical effect. In fact, far too much, overdone it there. So Alt key down, HLS, I can just reduce the saturation and have it a bit blue, and that will tint the lighting here so that these shadow regions that still too much have a slightly blue hue to them. Take that down there. See that? Whoops, that looks quite subtle, doesn't it? But when it's okay, that's more like I was aiming for. It still might be a bit much though. And the other thing I forgot to introduce in the last one, so I'll go back and modify that, is we never turned the haze back on, and that can help things a little bit to give a sense of space and depth. So I'll just get over this particular challenge at the moment of modifying this to a subtle blue-grey. Okay, that's where I want it to be, I think. And we can turn haze on by clicking on there. Let's try that. That's made things go a bit bluer, a bit too much in fact, so I'm going to reduce the thickness. Let's take it down to 24, see how that looks there. Oh, not enough perhaps. Let's take it up to 31. Okay, so that's just made that look a bit duller there by adding in the haze. It just pushes things back a bit, gives us a bit more sense of depth and space. And that's going to take 26 minutes at this setting. It's quite dark in these areas, isn't it? I wonder what I'm looking at there. Oh, the windows. So I don't know what goes on behind those windows. Maybe they are just in darkness behind there. Intriguing. Let's have a look at the original image we got for that. Yeah, that's the underside. Now, sometimes if something's perfectly horizontal, Trambiance doesn't like to light it. So if I get hold of this building, I want several, let's see what that building group is, and go to the attributes, and I'm just going to, let's see which is going to rotate it on any one of these axes. I'll do it 0.01 on its x-axis. Let's see if that's done it. Yes, yeah, see, it's not fully black now. It was just an error that you sometimes get with Trambiance. If something's perfectly horizontal to the ground, it just renders black, so that looks a bit better now. We've got our haze in, we've got our sunlight doing, so we'll save. I can use save as T2. So at the full render settings then, that is going to, let's see what we'll try. We'll try render options, we'll try 36 rays per pixel, see how long that one's going to take. It's obviously going to take a while, as you can see. I'm chucking down the screen there. Let's bring in back my other one and put some haze back in it as well and get that one rendering. It's taking a second to load. So we've got to the bottom on this one yet? No, that's still going. Sky and fog, haze settings. Now atmosphere, here we go, haze. What did we do? We did that one at 31, didn't we? So we'll just give that a quick go. So that just pushes these back, takes some of the contrast of these more distant hills, so it gives us more of an impression of depth just there. So that one's only going to take about 10 minutes, and this one's going to take quite a lot longer. Probably looking at that 3 or 4 hours, particularly if I'm going to but the other one will stop rendering, so it won't be stealing all the processing power. And then we'll be able to make a comparison between the two methods. Now I suspect that this one's going to be the more pleasing of the two, and this one's going to be the most contrasted, but we'll wait and see. Anyway, so we'll come back to this in a bit and have a look at the results. So the renders have completed now. I'm just showing you the original one to refresh your memory. This was a starting point, and my criticism was that the sky looked like a sort of overcast sky, but the whole scene seemed a little bit dull. Even though I've got these dark shadow regions, it didn't really feel like there was direct sunlight in this scene. So I really wanted to address the lack of ambient light in these areas. So we'll go to have a look what we've got. This is our direct light, image-based lighting render. The pros and cons, well, one of the major pros is it only took a fraction of the time of the true ambient render, which took about 4 hours, and this probably took about 30 or 40 minutes. The anti-alias pass took a while. So what can we see? Well, the waterfall is a little bit lost in the background. We've got some ambient lighting in these areas, but there's some obvious shadow casting because I only chose a quality of 16. So I'm going to add more virtual light sources, but then that would push the render time up. And there becomes a point when you think, well, if we're going to keep pushing the render time up, we might as well use true ambience. But effect-wise, what you get with the image-based lighting is it does tend to work very well with bump, when it's direct lighting from the HDRI, and it also provides quite high contrast. So we've got bright areas here, here and here from the sun, but the darker areas amongst the trees, and some very dark areas here. Because there's not much light getting up onto the underside of these, you've still got very deep shadow regions. So if we have a look at the Trambians version, so pros and cons. A major con would be that it took significantly longer to render. Also, it's had a bit of a problem with the volumetric material, and maybe I should have anticipated that. If we just swap back between the two, you see this is giving this edge effect, which hasn't really shown up very well. Probably should have let that remain brighter. But here, it seems to have created dark regions, so that would have to be addressed. Again, the waterfall's a little bit lost, and these dark areas here is probably due to me lowering the ray depth, possibly. You can see a little bit more of this cave going on in the background. There's a bit more light under the trees, and you've got very good ambient light around these. There's no obvious shadows, but you can see that there is light getting to the underside here, and darker areas close to where the modelling and underside there's still light, but you can see that it's moving into a shadow region. So those have worked well there. We've got all round these branches, because if we switch back to the HDRI, you can see the contrast is a little bit sharp here, and the underside looks rather dark. And I think that the Trambians version looks a little bit more naturalistic. Again, I think I've gained over the original one in terms of creating the illusion of there being sort of an intense sun in the sky, but we're not losing all this area to darkness. That looks maybe a little bit dark in this example. I don't know quite what's going off just there. It must be some kind of void. So there's the original. That's the HDRI version, and there's the Trambians version. So there's some things to try out there, hopefully, and I hope that that there is an obvious improvement in the lighting, if that's what you're aiming for, of course. I mean, if the artist wishes to create this rather gloomy effect, then there's nothing wrong with that. But if the aim was to create perhaps a more vibrant scene, then these lighting options are available. So anyway, I hope that helps. Cheers now.